Good morning, everybody. Welcome to hour 2 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Emhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger, and it is the Wednesday. It's the Wednesday before the Thursday that could really kind of set up the rest of this season for both of these teams, the Seahawks and 49ers, and it is a special Wednesday because we get to talk to Big Ray Roberts at Big Ray Roberts on Twitter. Man, how are you doing, Big Ray?
I'm doing all right, buddy. Little, hoping that the guys can get it figured out and, come out shining on Thursday, and then I'm headed to Mexico.
That sounds good. Hopefully, you'll be out of the path of wherever the hurricane was headed. So
yeah. I think we're going the opposite directions of the hurricane, and then speaking of the hurricane, like my hometown of Asheville, North Carolina, was hit with the hurricane as well, and so they've been trying to recover, and so I'm trying to have a GoFundMe campaign. If you look up Ray Roberts Hurricane Rescue, trying to get funds and resources and supplies back there. They need everything from like anything you can imagine. They need in not just food and water, but clothing, stuff to wash your dishes with, diapers, hand sanitizer. I mean, anything you can think of, people need. And so I'm trying to do my best from this distance to kind of support that.
Where can people go to find out more information on that?
Yeah, if you look up, I've been posting it on my social media, but there's a GoFundMe campaign, and it just says Ray Roberts Hurricane Relief Effort or Hurricane Relief Fund or something like that.
All right, well, everyone should make sure they check that out. No better way to spend money than helping other folks. So,
absolutely,
Ray, we got it. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to start by talking about this game against the Giants, as painful as that is. But then I want us to talk about the 49ers. So we'll do some film study, and let's do it with an eye on what's going to have to change for this to not be as painful as that game was. But before we get into the film, you were kind enough to read my morning after column this week. I obviously had a lot of things to say in there. You had some thoughts and reactions. I'm curious what got your attention, what your thoughts were.
Well, there's certain things that people covering sports or just anything will say that is such a broad term that you don't know exactly what it actually means when they say it, and then sometimes that can be misinterpreted. And so the part where you were saying like I agree that like the energy was just different. It was weird when the game started. They looked a little bit tired or whatever it was. But I've played this game, and I've been on some really bad teams, and I've played in some really bad games, and pride has never been an issue for anybody I've ever played with. And so when I hear people say, "Oh, they're playing with no pride," then I want to know exactly how are you defining pride? Like, what do you mean by that? Because there's a lot of other things that can contribute to what you might think looks like a lack of pride. And so what I saw was a lot of overthinking. And when you overthink, you get exhausted, you get frustrated, you lose energy, you lose focus, all those different types of things. Like your body language is different because you're trying so hard to figure out like you can't run any faster, you can't hit them any harder. You know what I'm saying? Like you're running as fast and hitting as hard as you can. And so like when I coached high school football, people would say, "Hit him harder." And it's like, what do you mean hit him harder? Like how do you know he's not hitting him as hard as he possibly can? You know what I'm saying? And so when I just hear people question an athlete's pride or their heart or something like that, that's just a really big statement to make. And because when you're in that arena, man, like you're not going out there you're a grown ass man. And you're not going out there going like, I'm gonna have no pride today and just let someone kick my ass. That ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a lack of pride. But the fact that you're showing up and you're playing and you're trying to figure it out as you go, and it may not look the way you want it to look, but it doesn't mean that they lack pride. And so just like sometimes big concepts like that, when people use them, I'm just like, man, like you don't ever want to be the person that says like, that sounds like a person who's never played, but you don't walk into that arena and run into 300-pound men for 60 plays and not show up with pride and show up with whatever it takes to get you to get to the place where you're going to say, today I'm choosing to run 60 times into another human being as fast and as hard as I can. But what I think what you did see was that a lot of people that were overthinking it, just trying to like on the fly figure out, why is this not working? Like, this is what we practiced. This is where I thought I was supposed to be. Maybe I should be over here. Maybe I should be over there. And then you start seeing people trying to take ownership of it on their own. And then that just compounds the problem. Because then it's like, well, shoot, somebody has to make a play. Let me make a play. And all of a sudden you got the tackle and the defensive tackle and the linebacker in the same gap. And there's a hole a million miles wide. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just like, I like the layout of it. It's just that when I hear people question someone's pride and heart, that's a tough place to go to, because you have to be inside a person to feel and see that. And what you're seeing on the field can be misinterpreted as a lack of pride.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think finding the right words are tough sometimes. So let me tell you a little bit about why I arrived there. And there's probably a better word for it. But what I've observed over the years is it is hard to every week show up with the same mentality, the same level of energy in any sport, like game in, game out. It's just tough to do. Like, it's tough to be, consistency is like a really challenging thing for any athlete, play in, play out, game in, game out reality. It's also not abnormal that one of the things that can contribute to that is, all right, you see a team that maybe is not as, it doesn't have Patrick Mahomes on the other side. It doesn't have Tyreek Hill on the other side. They're missing some of their best players. And you feel like, okay, maybe there's a little bit like you overlook a team. And that happens. Like, it does happen for, almost every team. Pete Carroll was very good about having his teams rarely like have fewer instances of that. But I saw it with Mike Holmgren's teams. I saw it with all sorts of teams. It's hard. And Leonard Williams said after the game, like, I think we underestimated them. We kind of overlooked this team a little bit. And you heard from Geno Smith that, like, they wanted it more. They fought harder. And if this was like an isolated game in the middle of the season where that happened, I'd kind of be like, well, that sucks. But it happens to every team. And the part that was most concerning to me about that is that it happened on the defense the game after you got boat raced on national TV in Detroit. And so my expectation would be you don't care who you're playing the next week. All you care about is getting on the field and erasing the memory that anyone has that that's who we are. You want to get out there and you want to demonstrate this is our level of play as a defense. And so the fact that they would have that kind of performance and then overlook or not have the same energy coming into this game, the only word I could think of, and again, it might be a limit of my vocabulary, was like, if you are a prideful person, you are independent of who you're playing. You're like, I want to show my level because that's who we are. And for them not to come in with that, I was like, well, why would that be? Like, how could you not be even more motivated in this game as opposed to, yeah, we didn't come out with the right energy level and we kind of overlooked this team.
Here's where I would even disagree with the players. And sometimes I think when you're at the podium after a game and you haven't watched the film and broken it down, then those just sound like post game media words. Because if they were overlooking to me, this is how I know it wasn't them overlooking the team. They made the same mistakes they made against the Detroit Lions. So it's not like if the things were corrected from the Lions game and then something else showed up different in this game and they got boat race, then you might say, yeah, they overlooked it. But they had the same issues. And that's not a overlooking thing. That's there's a breakdown in the communication thing. And so even when a player says we have to work harder, working harder doesn't solve the problem. What solves the problem is figuring out what the problem is and solving the problem. And so like working harder is just a catchphrase for a lot of different things. And that's why I always go like, well, what exactly do they mean by that? Because you're not going to tell me they didn't work hard during the week. You're not going to tell me they weren't playing hard. Dudes are run. You don't go out to that. You don't play that game at 3/4 speed. You'll get freaking hurt. That's when people get hurt. You know what I'm saying? And so playing like working harder, wanting more, all that kind of stuff. Though to me, those are catchphrases for like is right after the game. I haven't reviewed the film. I haven't really had time. Like, I mean, you take a shower, put on your clothes, go to the podium. Like it's like, you know what I'm saying? And so that's why like I don't buy into all that stuff. I look at what is happening on the field. And what's happening on the field is that there is a problem, whether it's communication or gap integrity or dudes that can only do certain parts of the defense you're asking them to do. Maybe the complexity of the defense needs to be simplified a little bit. Maybe the player needs to simplify it a little bit, because those are problems that can be solved. Because you can go out here and work hard as hell and be working at the wrong things. You know what I'm saying? You can say I'm working hard to run a marathon and you're running 40-yard sprints.
Yeah.
Like that ain't going to help you run the marathon, but you're working hard. You got to solve the problem. And they didn't solve the problem from one game to the next, because the same issues popped up in both games. And then even on the offensive side of the ball, it was more like you fell into the same trap that you fell into in Detroit, where you're chasing the situation of the game and chasing the scoreboard versus going like, this is who we are and this is how we came to play, and we're going to play this game. And then we're going to use this game to work ourselves back into
yeah.
The
There's
game.
so much good in what you just said.
So that's what I go like. I don't. A lot of the stuff that the guys say after games, I just don't. It's just like even coaches, it just goes right over my head, because I've been there, and you have to come up with something to say, and you want to say something that you're not going to get bitten back by the media about. So you almost try to say what you think they're going to say about you, and you just say it. And so I don't know that I buy every single part of that, because if, like I said, on the defense, if they showed up and they were in the right gaps and doing all the right things, and wasn't another communication type of thing, then I would say, yeah, they probably overlooked them. But they had the same exact issues against the Detroit Lions. So that tells me they just didn't solve the problem.
We're going to get to looking at some of that in a minute here. There's a couple things I want to check in with you on, because there's a lot of good in what you just said that I'm curious about. So there's another, like you're used to reading and hearing from players after games, and you're right. A lot of it is kind of recycled, and you kind of get used to the same sound bites, a loss versus a win, kind of know what you're going to hear. Mike McDonald had basically the same point of view you did. It was like, look, the film is the truth. Like that's telling us what we're doing and what we're not doing. We're making these mistakes. We're going to have to fix it. Like 100%. And that makes perfect sense. When Leonard Williams, like there was comments from him and Julian Love, like Leonard Williams talked about how on the sidelines we were bickering, like we were like guys were getting into it with each other. We weren't staying together. Julian Love talked about how like didn't handle adversity well. He was much like more flowery with his language, but the same message. Jerome Baker talked about we weren't together. That like. That doesn't sound typical. I don't normally hear that after game in, game out. And so if it's just an X's and O's things, then cool. Like, let's just fix that. And maybe that fixes everything else. But I do wonder your perspective, like in those situations where things are going wrong on the sideline. You've talked about how Ray Donaldson was like the vet that would come in and like grab you and be like, let's get this crap straight. Do they have the players there to like lead through that kind of situation, if that is what's happening?
Yeah, the other component that makes this hard is all the newness. So like Julian Love is a new leadership voice in that locker room. Leonard Williams is a new leadership voice in that locker room. Before you had Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, and you had these big, huge, successful personalities that when they talked, everybody listened. On the offensive side of the ball, as quiet as it is, Tyler Lockett. Like, I don't care what Geno says or what Russell Wilson said or whoever has said on the offense. When Tyler Lockett says, "Hey, this is what we need to do," or "This is what's happening," I trust him, because the dude doesn't just give you, he's going to tell you what he's thinking. And so I do think that on the sideline, when they're saying they just weren't connected, I think it boiled down to, hey, man, like, I'm supposed to be in the A gap. You're supposed to be in the B gap. We're both in the A gap. Why is that happening? And it's probably happening because one of those two dudes is going, man, it ain't going the way it's supposed to go. I'm just going to try to make a play. And that's the overthinking part. That's the I'm going to try to do, like, when people go, you got to go 110%. No, you can't go 110%. Because if you could, that means you're going less than 100% because you have 10 more percent to give. You know what I'm saying? You can only go 100. You can only go 100%. You know what I'm saying? And so if you're giving all you have, but you're doing all you have at the wrong things, then you're going to have outcomes like you had, and then you're going to have people on the sideline get frustrated. Like, man, I'm trying to hold down this double team, and like you end up right behind me. Like, we had a running back after Barry retired, and then we had this running back came in. I think his last name was Hill. He came from Kansas City, and I would come to the sideline, and they go like, "Ray," it's a little joke. They would go like, "Ray, how's your back feeling?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" They go, "Man, this dude just keeps running up your back the whole time. Like, can he not see the hole?" You know what I'm saying? And so when you're both trying really hard to make a play, and then one dude is trying to be extra, then that can kind of create friction on the sideline, because everyone's trying to figure out, why the hell did it fall apart when I know I was where I was supposed to be? And it's like, well, I thought I'd try to get over here and do it. And I think that's what creates like the little strife on the sideline. And I think that came from everybody overthinking it. It's feeling just like it felt in Detroit. We can't stop them. They're gashing us up the middle. They're throwing the ball wherever they want to throw it. Man, like, I feel like I'm doing everything I can. I remember my rookie year, we played in Dallas. We never crossed the 50-yard line. I swear to you, we were blocking everybody, and they would still have 4 dudes on the quarterback. And you just be like, holy crap. Like that. So then I'm on the sideline going like, hey, what else can I do? What's the difference? Like, on the sideline, trying to learn a new technique during the game to think that it's helping something. And it just exacerbates the situation. And so that just creates like all that havoc on the sideline. Then you get the opportunity. People are learning each other. Leadership is trying to establish itself. Newness is all going on. And then you have all the bickering and stuff going back and forth.
You said another thing you said before we get last thing before we get into reviewing some of the film is chasing on offense. And one of the things that strikes me, Ray, is you knew even before the Lions game, you knew who the Lions were. You knew that they were going to take that offensive line, David Montgomery, Jameer, they're going to try to run the ball down your throat. That like they're a physical team. That is their identity. You know who they're, even defensively. You know that they are a blitzing, man cover, press team. Like they've got an identity. 49ers, no matter what, they're going to run the ball. They're going to, get it to Ayuk, Debo, get yards after. Like, who that team is. It feels like the Seahawks offense is a little bit of a chameleon right now. Like they're trying to figure out what the situation calls for, as opposed to really, really asserting who they are. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because like the conflict I've had is the whole talk leading into the regular season was DK supposedly went to Grubb and was like, said something to the effect of, man, I can't wait to throw the ball all over the yard and all this other kind of stuff. And Grubb had a meeting, stood in front of everyone and said, we're going to be a team that runs the football. And then on the very first play of the very first game, they came out throwing the football and then threw an interception on like the second or third play. And then they haven't quite captured the running game since then. And so to me, you can't say that you want to be a tough physical football team and then be a team that throws the ball almost 100 times in 2 games. Like, that's not physicality. That's something else. I don't know how they define it, but that's not being physical. And then as an offensive lineman, I know the offensive line is maybe not playing with the consistency that you want them to play with, but how do you make the consistency an even bigger inconsistency? Is to make them one-dimensional and just go, we're going to throw this thing every single time, because that's what the defense wants to do. Those defensive linemen, they don't get paid for tackles for losses. They don't get paid for making tackles 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. They get paid for sacks, and they want to rush the quarterback. And so I've never been in a game where a player has, this is usually a universal sign like I need a break. I've never been in a game where a dude is rushing the quarterback a lot and they did this. I've been in games where you're running the ball down their throat and they go like, man, I need a break. And so they want to rush the quarterback. And so you're saying, okay, like we may be down the score, or hey, the defense escaped a long drive. Let's just play into the hands of what the defense wants to do, which is rush the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? And so it just doesn't make any sense. And then like when you say like, oh, we want to get Geno groove, this is why I say like the offensive line is the most misunderstood position in all of sports. It's like, well, the offensive line wants to get grooved too. And the way we get grooved is when we get to punch a dude in the mouth. Like when you get to run the football, when you get to like try to test another dude's will, when you can see if you can break another guy, when you can hear the air go out their body, when you can drive their back into the dirt. Like that is what gets you grooved into the game, not throwing that thing 55 times. Like that is such a pass protection, is such a reactionary thing that you don't even get to be the best athlete you can be because you're having to react to a better athlete. And so running the football gives you an opportunity to express yourself physically. It gives you an opportunity to engage the physicality of the game. It gives you an opportunity to go like, oh man, when we ran that outside zone, the linebackers were running really fast over the top. So maybe the cutback is there. Maybe we need to hold on to the cutoff a little bit longer. But if you only run the ball 2 times in the first half, 4 times in the first half, you can't figure that out. So now every time you run the ball, it's life or death. There's no gray area to figure out like, oh man, like I may have needed to hold on to that double team a little bit longer. Or hey, the linebackers are really running downhill. Like you don't get to get all of that, because then every run you have to break it a big run, or we're going to go back to just throwing the football, And so I just think like that approach to me just feels like you're going like, oh man, here's the score. We got to catch up in 2 plays. Oh man, here's the situation. We better chase this situation and just, and it's weird because every game I've gone in the halftime show, I go, let me just see what's going to happen in the third quarter, because then I can tell you what's happening with the game, because there was the first half of all the games haven't quite been what you thought it was going to be. Then all of a sudden they figure out something in the second half and things start working. Well, you need to figure that thing out in the first half, because you're not going to win a whole lot of games waiting to the second half to kind of make the aha moment and make it happen. And so I think part of that is going, this is our game plan, and we're gonna run this game plan to make a difference. You're taking one of your most explosive weapons, you're taking them out of the game. You're not even giving the offensive line a chance to fail at blocking. You're going like, we're just going to take him out of the game. And so that's just an interesting way to go about it. And I can't get into Grubb's head and say why he went and did and or if it's experience or whatever it is. I just know that that's not a formula that's going to work for this team.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, Ray. We're talking to Big Ray Roberts. It's going to be fascinating. You've got Mike McDonald, who has changed his tune about how much he's involved with the offense. As soon as things went this way, he said, yep, we should be running the ball more. Yes, I'm involved, play to play. Like he started like literally giving different answers than he gave 3 or 4 weeks ago about how he's involved. He said they need to run. Ryan Grubb comes out yesterday, as accountable as any coach I've seen, basically say, that's on me. I blew it. Can't have that happen. Everybody knows, like Nick Bosa was like interviewed at his locker yesterday, and he's like, yeah, they only got Kenneth Walker the ball like 5 times. We know that they're going to run the ball more. He's going to get it a lot on Thursday. So now you're in a situation where there's no mystery. You're coming in, and as an offensive lineman, like there's an opportunity here for the Seahawks to write a different story.
Yeah. Like as an offensive lineman, like it doesn't matter how well you're playing. You want to feel like you're factoring into the success of the team. And a lot of times you want the success of the team to ride on your shoulders. You're the biggest dudes, the strongest dudes, the guys that hit every single play. You are the ones that establish some of that physicality and stuff like that. And a lot of times, as the physicality of the offensive line goes, the physicality of the whole team goes. So like when the defensive line sees the offensive line getting at it, it's like energizing. And so I do think that the I hope that the Seahawks and Grubb come in and just run their game plan and not all of a sudden force the run. You know what I'm saying? Because then you're swinging the pendulum all the way the other way, and then that doesn't work either. You got to find some type of balance in it, and balance isn't 50-50. It's just finding synergy between the running game and the passing game, like how they marry together. And there's a lot of things that they want to do that I saw Grubb do at Washington that you're not seeing now. Like a lot of the motions and the movements and all that kind of stuff that help the running game, that look like the run game, and then you throw the ball, or looks like the passing game and you run the ball. Like you're just not even seeing that type of stuff, or maybe I'm just missing it when I'm watching the film. But like all those types of things help everything. It helps with the running game and it helps with the passing game. I remember Richard Sherman, they asked him what was so hard about the 49ers defense. And he said, well, Shanahan, they design plays where the first 2 or 3 steps, you can't tell if it's the run or the pass. It looks all the same. And then before you know it, someone has run a quick slant, or before you know it, the running back's sitting in your lap, because the first 2 or 3 steps look all the same. And I thought that this offense would look similar to that, and it just hasn't quite gotten to that place yet. But play action helps. Like this is why, I know I'm going on a long rant here, but this is why the PFF stuff like drives me nuts, because they have like all these little freaking splitting hairs ways to try to create the data. Like, oh well, this is his win rate on a
true
traditional drop back. Like what? Yeah. That like we don't. As an offensive lineman, you don't go like, oh, I got on this play, I got a true pass set. It's like they're all pass sets, and they're all part of the whole game. It's all part of like of pass protection. It's a different ways that you attack people in the pass game. You don't break it down by in the play action pass. I got a grade of 80, and the drop back pass I got a grade of 70. It's like no, in pass protection, you're either getting it done or you're not getting it done. It's not like all these splitting hairs kind of a thing. And so that's why play action pass and all those different movements are part of pass protection. It helps your team. It helps your offensive line develop as pass protection, as pass protectors. It helps you be a better pass protecting team because it's all part of it. You can't separate one from the other. And that's the one thing that I hate about all of the PFF data and stuff, because then people that don't know the sport just throw that up there, and you go like, oh, well, this means something. And a lot of times it doesn't mean. It's like, I know in data and statistics and stuff, there's a term that says there's no statistical difference. And so I went back and looked at like even the top offensive lines from last year, and like the top couple 2 or 3 offensive lines that were pro football focused didn't make it to Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So what the fuck what does all the freaking grading and all that stuff mean, other than it's just filler for a lot of stuff? It is a part of the pie. It is not the pie. And so you have to use all those weapons, all those tools at your disposal: play action pass, running the football, drop back passing, 3-step drops, quick passes, deep. All of that contributes to you being a good pass protecting football team. And then when it relates to running the ball, Grubb was saying like, oh man, we're not moving people. Well, in this league, there's not a whole lot of offensive lines that are consistently moving dudes 3 and 4 yards down the line. If you can move a guy 6 to 12 inches, that creates lanes for dudes to run. With K9, if you can just put a hat on a hat, this dude will make it right. But if you leave somebody running free, that makes it harder. And there's some places, that's one of the videos that we have. It's just like you can't have a free runner. You may not get movement, but you got to put a hat on a hat. And that's how we block for Barry sometimes. Like if we're playing, Green Bay Packers had a freaking huge. The dude they called the grave digger, this dude was like 340 pounds, and they had Sean Jones and Reggie White, and that's some dudes you weren't moving them. But if we would break the huddle and just like get a hat on a hat and let Barry do what he does. And so you just cover a guy up and let Barry do what he does. And so it's not necessarily about having to move dudes like every single time in the running game. Sometimes you got to go like, we may not get movement, but cover everybody up so that this dude can find his way.
Awesome stuff from Big Ray Roberts. Let's take a look on Big Ray's Rewind at some film. And this first play, Ray, let's put this up here. That would make sense. All right. This first play, Ray, tell us what we're looking at here.
You
want me to play it for you?
Yeah, because I thought, Oh, yeah. I know what this is. So one of the problems that the Seahawks have been having in both the run game and the passing game is that and I think it relates to them not taking the right angles and the gap integrity. But man, the middle of the field, I've never seen the middle of a field come so wide open for running games, for throwing the football. And this was like early in the game. I think this was a quarterback draw. And you can see why they were attacking. They were attacking in the running game, the middle of the field, and they were attacking in the passing game, the middle of the field. And they were doing this with the quarterback because I think they were thinking like in the spread offense, like no one's really accounting for really the quarterback. And so there's opportunities for him to run. And he's a dude that feels comfortable running the football. And I had said in the pregame, like, man, we can't let him, get into a rhythm running the football because that kind of boosts his confidence. That's part of his game. And early in the game, they were able to do that. And this is just one of those plays that kind of show how the middle of the field opens up.
Anything you want me to be highlighting here?
Well, if you stop it right now,
yeah.
Look at that. Look at this gap that is almost as wide as the hashes. The middle of the field is it's really hard in the NFL to find lanes like that to run through. And if you watch the film, there are a lot of lanes like this to run through. So either you have dudes in the wrong gaps, taking bad angles, what have you, and they close on it well. But man, that was just a sign of things to come because the linebackers, nobody was coming down to fill the middle of the field. This linebacker down here on the closest hash is playing outside the hash. The linebacker at the top is trying to fill, but he's filling at an angle that doesn't actually fill the gap. It's like he's running. Sometimes dudes run to get blocked, and he's running to get blocked, and it kind of opens up it keeps the middle of the field wide open.
All right, next one we've got here. This play here ring a bell for you? You've got you've got Devin Witherspoon maybe coming in here.
Yeah, I think this might be this is a pass play. So the tight end down here on the left, here again, both linebackers run towards the hashes and open up the middle of the field again. And so this is the easiest throw in the history of the world for any quarterback. It's because the receiver is going to be right in front of you with his shoulders turned towards you saying, I'm wide open. And so it's just another example of like, I don't know exactly what the communication is or what the gap assignments are, but they are not defending the middle of the field. Look how wide that if he wanted to run the quarterback draw again, he probably could have run right down the middle of the field. But this tight end right here, the setup right in the middle, is wide open, catches ball, he turns it up the field for 6, 7, 8 yard gain. And that is, I promise you, that is exactly where every team is going to attack this defense until they figure it out that whatever it is, maybe they're in the wrong gaps, they're in the wrong lanes, the coverage isn't quite right, but that you can go all the way down the field making that throw right there. I could make that throw.
Do you think in this case, you've got Draymond Jones dropping into coverage, right? So
yeah,
you had it's kind of like a sim pressure. You got Devin Witherspoon coming in on this side, and Draymond Jones. Like sometimes it's not even the linebacker, right? It's what they're asking of some of these defensive linemen. And that's an issue, not having Boye Mafe as one of the options. Like the guys that you're dropping into coverage are different than you've had earlier in the year.
Yeah, and you also have to think that's what I was saying, like at the beginning, like maybe the player that you're asking to add on complexity doesn't have what it takes to do that complex part of it. So maybe there's parts of it they can do the base defense, line up at the defensive end, rush the quarterback, set the edge, and all that kind of stuff. But when you start asking them to then, drop into coverage, search up the tight end, defend the middle of the field, maybe that's just not in that person's skill set. And then you're just going like, well, we hope that Witherspoon off the edge gets home because then that won't matter. But if he doesn't get home, then that does matter. So then you have to go like, well, with this personnel, do we simplify the complexity? So you can still be complex, but you better simplify it in a way that person's skill set can execute what you're asking them to do.
On this play, Ray, run up the middle, I'm curious about the fronts. Like this, you've got Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed. You got two down linemen,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got basically two wide edge guys, and then you've got your two linebackers.
Right.
That's a light box. This has been a major problem for the Seahawks is trying to defend the run with a light box. I actually just talked about this in the last hour. I don't know if you believe this. So the Seahawks are one of the worst teams in the NFL in defending the run. They average giving up 6.5 yards a carry in light boxes. When they're just neutral, forget heavy, when they just have 7 guys in the box, they're fourth in the NFL in defending the
Right.
run. They're like 3.5 yards a carry. So talk to me about before we even play this, what's the logic? How do you if you're good, how would you defend the middle run with this alignment? What do you have to do?
Well, you better have some dudes that can eat up blocks and double teams at the line of scrimmage. And this is what we talked about early in the season, is that if these linebackers cannot run, then this defense does not work. And so if the guards and the tight ends and the tackles and the center are able to get through these double teams and either push the defensive lineman back into the lap of the linebacker or they physically get to the linebacker, this is not going to work. And there's a lot of people that were I think the Cowboys a couple years ago was having some success with these really light boxes and smaller linebackers. And we even had, people saying oh man, that's what the new defenses are. You got to go to that and blah, 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 blah. It's yeah, that's all fine and dandy when someone's throwing the ball 56 times. But when they decide you know what, we're going to run this thing between the tackles and we're going to force those dudes to take on blocks, get off blocks and make tackles to these hard run on these hard running running backs, then it becomes a problem. And to me, this has become a problem for the Seahawks because this is part of the complexity that they're trying to add into their defense, but they may not have the skill set or the people that can execute this in this light box and still make tackles because these linebackers keep getting traffic that they have to get through to get to the tackles.
So Ray, am I right? This is called a duo run, right?
Yeah, duo or double team. You don't have to overthink it, but it's a double team on both sides. Yeah.
So you got two double teams, and it does seem like the linebackers are clean.
Right.
But talk about for a second, there are multiple gaps. One of the things when you have a light box is there's not enough run defenders to cover every gap. That's what you're trading off, right?
Right.
So how, do you have a point of view on is there a gap that they should be prioritizing? When there's a blitz and the running back is always, told to take the inside guy versus the outside guy, that is there a priority to the gaps here?
Well, to me, it looks like if you just look at the initial front, it looks like these two linebackers are kind of hung out to dry. They either have to take the two gaps between the guards and the tackles, or someone has to take the middle. But if you look over, I guess that would be to my left, but to the right of the defense, that's a safety. I think that's a safety coming down. So this dude, so he should be filling that gap between right there, and then the middle line or the other linebacker over should be in the middle, and then the one linebacker should be right where he is. And they're not getting to those fits in these light boxes. That safety has to get there and have a presence there, or you're going to get stuck. And so what happens is that linebacker and the safety, they get stuck in the same gap. And then that running back just hops over the lineman and goes straight up the field. And then the see what I'm saying? So if the safety was down in the box faster, and the linebacker had went over and played the middle of that middle gap, then maybe you have a chance of closing this off. But because they both ended up outside, what's that, the A gap on the on the wrong side of the A gap, then all of a sudden you have this big, huge hole that's wide open. And this happened time and time and time again with this defense. And those are the types of things that you have to solve. You have to either get guys to win some of those double teams, which is really hard to do against any team. It doesn't matter how good the offensive line is or not. It's hard to beat 200-300-pound dudes. But you do have to eat them up in a way that you keep those linebackers clean. And in this situation, I think I can't see the numbers there, but I think
This is Baker. This
Baker
is
should have been,
and Tyrell's over here.
Yeah, so I think it just my opinion. I think Baker should have taken that middle gap, and then the safety should have been in this, I guess, C gap, if you want to call it that. And then you have a chance to have all those gaps covered. But they keep finding, and so when they start talking about like gap integrity and how we fit up and our angles and things like that, this is what they're talking about, because this can't be the right gaps and angles that they're supposed to be attacking, because it's leaving, again, the middle of the field wide open. If this dude doesn't trip up, he's probably going to hit his head on the goalpost, or the next person to make the tackle is going to be Julian Love.
All right, let's take a look at this next one here. This is later on in the game, and
I think this is we should be on offense.
Yeah, this will be. We'll get this after the punt here. Is this one you wanted?
No, it should have been like I think 37-47.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that was a nice play to watch, though.
Yeah, well, hey, so we completed pass.
All right,
they had a halfway decent screen too.
All
yeah,
right.
so this is the reason I picked this play. Is this? There's two things that's going on here. In Ryan Grubb's offense in the run game, they do like to move and pull people, and when you pull, you have to be you got to identify the guy that you're pulling to before you pull, and you have to be able to track as you're pulling, like what's happening in front of you, but still have an eye on where the dude is that you're supposed to trap. And what I'm finding is that these guards haven't proven themselves that they can block on the run like that. They in the Detroit game, one of the very first running plays, they tried a down block by Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then Bradford was supposed to pull around and pick up that front side linebacker, and Bradford stopped with JSN. The linebacker ran right past him and made the tackle. If he just pushes the linebacker, that might be a touchdown on the very first time, that it may have been a 60-yard touchdown by K9. But you can't have a guy running free at the point of attack. And this is another example of this might be why when Grubb runs the ball and something like that happens, and then you go like, man, I don't want to run it again. You know what I'm saying? And let's see if this is it. No. Oh, no. I'm sorry. That's the next running play. Run it back. Okay. I'm sorry. I got one place mixed up. But this was another one though. Like this is an awareness thing. So Anthony Bradford's going to double team the nose with the center to the linebacker. You're already leveraged by the linebacker to the side of the play. So you can't lean your body all the way back into the center and then expect to outrun the linebacker to the point of attack. You have to like step straight up the field, give the center a hand, so that then you can use that to push off to that linebacker. So that's another example of a guy that's free at the point of attack, and that makes it hard to then say, like, we're going to keep running the football. If that's an excuse that I can, if Grubb sees that and goes like, man, if we keep having that, we're going to keep having these same results. And so in this situation here, see how Bradford kind of took that extra step back inside? There was no need to take the extra step back inside. That's an awareness thing. That's a preparation thing. That's a situational thing. The linebacker's already two dudes out, like almost a gap and a half towards where the play is going. And he's more athletic and faster than you are. And you're going to step away from him to get to him. That just the technique doesn't make sense. And so it's like little things like, yeah. And so now I think this is back on defense. And this is one like, yeah. So if you run it back, I remember early on before the season started, they said they had this thing on defense: your eyes, hands, and feet. And this one right here I forget everybody's name. The zero here,
Tyrell Dodson.
Dodson. his eyes, I have no idea where they are, because his eyes are telling him that the ball is going to his left, and the running back and his body language is all coming to the right. And so his eyes are unbelievably wrong on this play. And these are the types of little mistakes that keep happening. And so when they say it's communication, it's gap integrity, it's fit, all these different kinds of things, there's nothing about the way this lineman is coming out to him. It does nothing about the angle of the running back's shoulders, nothing about the way the quarterback opened up that would tell him that somehow he should sprint to his left. So his eyes are lying to him. And so when they talk about their eyes and their hands and their feet, man, his eyes unbelievably failed him at this point, because he should be filling straight up the field. This is a pretty cool play they ran, but he should be getting straight up the field into that hole to maybe make that a 3 or 4 yard game versus the big game that it was.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Jonathan Hankins has got there.
Yeah.
Jaron Reed's kind of winning to the inside. How in the world? The play is already running, and unless he thinks that this is going to be like a bootleg
or something,
he's gonna
I don't know,
to cover someone in the flat.
Yeah, and so this is like one of those. This is one of those situations where you're just overthinking. Like he's overthought what his assignment is and what he's seeing. He's completely overthought it because he wants to try to make a play. You know what I'm saying? So like at the core of what he's probably thinking is making a play, but the way he went about executing trying to make a play was just miscommunicated in his own mind. And so to me, that means that you're overthinking things. You're not going, the defense says for me to do this. The read says that it's right here. My assignment is right there. It's like, man, I need to go make a play. Oh, they ain't going to get, shoot, like wrong gap. And so those are the things. Those little things right there is what makes it look like you're getting gashed, and then it makes it look like physically you're getting beat down, and then it can be easy to say like, oh man, they're not playing with any pride. And it's like, I'm sure he had pride in knowing like, hey, I'm gonna sniff this play out, and then it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? So that was just some of the things. And I think if this is the next one, I think they ran like
this is the last one we got.
Yeah, they ran like a pin and pull type. Yeah, there we go. And so, first of all, when you run, stop it right there. Look at that freaking hole, dog. Like, if I was a running back, I would get the first down on that if you gave me the football. Like, that is it's hard to get lanes like that in NFL. And they had multiple of them. And if you run the film back, Dotson on the backside ran like I said, some people run to get blocked. He ran to get blocked. He may have thought he could shoot the gap, but man, that was a small gap to try to get through versus going over the top of that block. So he tried to go between there, not going to get there. And then 17, he had to do what he had to do to spill it back inside. But then if you look at man, I forget his name, number 2. What is his last name?
Rayshawn Jenkins.
Rayshawn Jenkins runs to get blocked. Like, just run up in there and make the tackle. He runs up in there and sees someone coming to block him and leans into the blocker. Like, watch right here. Lean into. Why did he do that? I don't understand that technique right there. You had a free run to fill the gap and make the tackle right there. You felt the presence of a blocker and you took on the blocker. You blocked yourself in that play. And so those are the types of things where that you're not coached that. He didn't do that in practice this week. I promise you that. And this is not what they're asking him to do. You know what I'm saying? But this is part of when things feel like it's getting out of hand and you start to overthink and you try to do too much. And the next thing you know, you're doing things like this that makes absolutely no sense at all. This should have been at best like a 3 or 4 yard gain, and Rayshawn should have been making the tackle right there in the hole. But he went and blocked himself, and then that's compounded with Dotson on the backside thinking he can squeak through that little gap to make the tackle, and he blocked himself. And so now you're stuck with this dude just running straight down the hash, has a chance to knock himself out on the goalpost.
One of the things that's interesting, Ray, is Coach McDonald was given the opportunity to talk about the run defense, obviously, and said he feels like the edges are doing a decent job of setting the edge. He felt like the defensive linemen are actually doing a decent job up front, but that he
Mm-hmm.
really felt like the second level was where things are breaking down, which is mimicking like a lot of what you're saying. And in this
Exactly.
case, it looks like Jerome Baker is taking on the block probably as he should. Is that
Yeah, because
that's the
usually they either want you to take it on with his right shoulder and push it, make the running back cut back inside to where all the bad guys are, or they ask you to spill it, which means that you take your left shoulder and you drive it into the blocker's left leg, and that makes the running back have to bounce it to the outside. But the way this defense is set up, it seems like they're trying to funnel everything to the middle to where those linebackers are and where the safety is coming so they can make the tackle right there. But the problem is that you have both of those guys running to get blocked. and so
yeah.
it opened up this gigantic hole.
So it seems like to your point, Tyrell Dodson probably should have been filling the linebacker available in this gap. He chose to be ultra aggressive, and then Rayshawn Jenkins comes up here as opposed to filling this gap, and it just leaves nobody.
Yeah.
Leaves nobody
And
there.
like it doesn't it's I don't know what he was thinking when he could feel the presence of someone coming to block him. But if I'm coming to block you and you come to me and say block me, I'm gonna go like, hey, I got the yes for my box on that assignment. You just help me do it. Like, I don't know what made him stop. He stopped and leaned back into the offensive player versus just going on and filling the gap. He's a good tackler. He's a hard hitter. That's probably a 3 or 4 yard run, and it ends up being a double-digit yard run because both of those dudes blocked themselves in that situation. And so that's not what they're coached. They're very meticulous in what they do, and to me, that's another indication that you're overthinking it. You're trying to do too much, and you're not just going, what is my assignment? Dave Wyman and I coach high school football together, and we really stress all the time alignment and assignment. If you can just get those two things right, then you have a chance at being successful on whatever play it is. Now, sometimes you got to give the other side credit because they're good blockers or they make a good run or, they do their job a little bit better than you did yours. But to give yourself a chance, you got to get those two things right first, alignment and assignment. And in this situation, those two assignments just they're not right.
So let me ask you this. You're Mike McDonald. You have some choices to make. Do you kind of give up on this light box thing and start going to neutral boxes, at least have more guys in there to cover more gaps? Do you trust that these guys are going to start figuring out how to play this better? Do you send more run blitzes where you kind of force the defense's hand? You take a little bit more risk, but you force the defense or the offense to pick a hole, or maybe you're going to force where they're going to have to go. I don't think it makes sense that they would switch to more like bear fronts. I mean, that could be another thing that they do to take one more gap away. Like, what would you do?
I know when we first met Coach McDonald, one of the things he shared with us is that he is a dude that he doesn't rely strictly on the data, but he does, look at the data, whereas some coaches do or don't, or to what degree. And if you're telling me that when they're in these light boxes, they're one of the worst teams in the league defending the run, and for 2 straight games, you haven't quite figured out the gaps, communication, the integrity, the fit, the angle, all that other kind of stuff, this is not the game to try to figure that out. So then you might want to go to the 7-man boxes, because I promise you, they're going to run the football until the Seahawks tell them they can't run it anymore. And if they say they can't run, if they can't stop the run, they're going to run it and run it and run it. And this kid Mason, if he's 5'11", 225, 30 pounds, thick lower body, hard dude to tackle, and it gets harder to tackle a dude like that the more they get running. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they approach that. And you may have to, like I said, you may have to sacrifice some of your complexity so that you can do the things that the dudes can execute and execute with confidence and know that they can do it. And you're gonna have, it's like my kids, man. Like when my kids were young, there were certain things I'd let them do. And then there were certain things I said, you got to earn this. So they wanted cell phones. So I'm like, all right, this is how you're going to earn the cell phone. I have this old TV remote control. You're gonna have to keep this remote control for the next 2 or 3 months. And every time I ask you what a remote control is, you need to show it to me. Because if you lose it, then the cycle starts all over again. But there are other things, like, hey, I want to learn how to drive. Heck, I put them in the car when they were freaking 10 years old. Let's go for a drive. You know what I'm saying? But there are some things you got to earn. You got to earn it through continued expression that you can do it. And they haven't proven that they can play the light box and stop the run. So you better go to that thing that has proven that it can stop the run, because for now, that's how they're going to attack this team. They're going to make you stop the run.
When you've got situations like the Seahawks are in right now, where you're playing 3 games in 11 days or whatever it is, and you're trying to get recovery, you're doing walkthroughs and not full practices, can you change much? Or do you have to just kind of trust that things get better?
Well, I think what you change is what we just talked about. So one way to improve is to do something that you do better. Another way to improve is to eliminate the things that you don't do well. And so that it may be a process of elimination to create improvement, which is like what you were just saying. Like the one defense, they're worse in the league. 7 men in the box, they're like top 4 or 5 in the league. So it may be like less of that, more of this, because they are going to run the football. If you think they're going to come in and do something else, then you're wrong. They're not playing well. They tend to be a good running football team. Their big time running back is out, but they still have the play caller, and they still have those dudes up front, Trent Williams, and all those guys that can make it happen. And they're going to see the film. I promise you, if I was an offensive lineman, I would have been in the offensive coordinator's office going, they can't stop the run, and we want to run the football. I'm telling you, the offensive line, we want to run the football on this team. Give us a chance to do that. And I promise you, that's going to – if Trent Williams is worth his weight in gold, I guarantee you he had that conversation with Kyle Shanahan and say, hey, we better open the game up running the heck out of the ball and make them prove.
That's a lot of gold. That's a lot of gold. Yeah. That's a big man. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen in this game? What's the credible story in your mind, the credible way that this plays out where the Seahawks win? What has to change? How does it look if the Seahawks win this game?
I think that the defense is going to have to score points, and it may be direct points where it's like a pick six, fumble recovery for a touchdown, something like that, or it could be getting a turnover on their side of the field where it can get 3 points if it's a 3 and out, something like that, to score a touchdown. And then I think they're going to have to keep this running back Mason to under 100 yards rushing. If he rushes 95 to 115 yards, they're probably losing the football game, because that means that they're doing whatever they want to do on offense, because that triggers everything they do. And then for our offense, there has to be, I think if K9 can get close to that 95 to 100 yards of rushing on like maybe 18, 19 carries, then I think that our offense is having a chance of being successful, because Geno's going to be Geno. I think he's going to still be sharp and complete around the high 60s, 70% completion rate, and then there'll be a chance for some explosive plays. But I do think that I think the turning point of the game will be someone in the secondary making an explosive play in a turnover, and to me that'll be the difference in the game, because I don't think that overnight we're going to all of a sudden go to like just shutting the team down completely to where they can't run the football. And because you can't do that, some of their play action stuff is going to, they're going to make some plays in the passing game, and the dudes that they have that can catch and run after the ball. So I think there's going to have to be a score from the defense to contribute to the win for the Seahawks.
Last question, Ray, before I let you go. The right guard competition. Are you seeing anything that's given you a perspective on who should ultimately win that battle?
I will say this. You've given Bradford all the opportunity in the world to be the guy. And then Haynes has been the dude that's kind of rotated in and got his couple series here and there. At this point, I would either do one or two things. Either just say, one of these dudes is our guy, and we're just sticking to him and we just have to go. We don't have time now to figure out this competition, who's winning, who's not, and all this other kind of stuff. Put a dude in there and let's play. Or you say we're going to give Christian Haynes the chance to prove to us that he can hold it down for the entire game and ride with that, because it's cool that you have this competition going on and all that kind of stuff. But even in that, there's some attrition. You know what I'm saying? Because dudes are starting to doubt themselves. Then you're looking over your shoulder. You're worried more about your particular assignment and not how your assignment impacts the whole thing. So then you get stuck maybe trying to do a little too much. And then when that little too much doesn't work, you maybe go in the tank. And you're confident. So it's really hard to kind of have this in real time competition going on when you're playing for the real wins and losses. That's something that should have been explored real heavily in the preseason. They should have gotten lots and lots and lots and lots of reps like that in practice and in all the preseason games. They should have been rotating like that to kind of try to figure it out, because this is not the time to figure that out. You're at the point in the season now, you're going into the second quarter of the season where you just have to pick a dude and ride with him, and then you have to figure out how to mitigate the whatever their weakness is. If it's Bradford and his inconsistency, or if it's Haynes and you feel like he's not strong enough, or whatever it is, which I haven't quite seen that yet. But whatever their weakness is, then it's up to you as an offensive coordinator to figure out how to mitigate the weakness so that you can have some continuity across the offensive line.
Big Ray, it's been awesome having you again. And
Yes,
tell
sir.
folks what they should look for coming from you, either Big Ray's Garage Rewind or Big Ray's Garage Grind or
Yeah.
anything else coming up.
Yeah, so I'll be out of town from this Friday to the next Friday, so I won't have another Big Race Garage Grind episode, but I will drop in some little stingers just to kind of have some thoughts on my mind that I haven't had a chance to get out. So, and it's mostly around families that have to support individuals that have mental health issues. And so a lot of times they get lost in the shadows of things and there's no support for them and all that kind of stuff, things that they can do to kind of support themselves. And then, like we said at the beginning, the hurricane that went through North Carolina went right through the heart of my hometown, Asheville, North Carolina. Went to high school there, grew up there. I had to get my sisters out of the area there. My parents are not alive anymore, but they went there. But my entire family lives in Asheville, North Carolina. So they've all been impacted. So I have a GoFundMe page. And if you Google GoFundMe and Ray Roberts, I'm sure it'll pop up. Any amount of money helps. $5, $50, $500, $5,000, whatever you can give helps. They need every possible thing you can think of to get through their day: food, water, toiletries, clothes, dishes, towels, diapers, hand sanitizer, like anything you can think of in your daily life that you use, they need. And so if you can help us, help me, help them, I would really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Make sure you check that out, folks. And Ray, thanks so much, man. It's
Yeah.
always educational. Everyone always learns. The chat is blowing up with how much they love these opportunities with you. So every other week we
Cool.
get
I
Big Ray
appreciate
here,
you,
and
brother.
really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, well, good. I forgot to tell you too. I like that hat you got on.
Thank you.
Your hat is popping today. I like the throwback.
Well, it's back to your era, man.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us would like to just change the default uniform at this point. So,
You know what's crazy though? I played here for 4 years, but there's only, in my category of pictures I can even find, there's only maybe 2 pictures of me in the blue. I'm always in the white, and the white just doesn't pop the same way the blue pops. And
no.
so I may have to go to the Seahawks and see if I can find some old black and whites that maybe I look like I'm in the blue or something.
All right, dude. Well, thank you so much. That's Big Ray.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you follow him. Take care, dude.
Have a good one, man. Peace.
All right. That was Big Ray Roberts, the best in the biz. So great to have him. So much that we learn every week. And I hope you guys all enjoyed that. It was painful, but it's good to see that it isn't just necessarily a physical issue. It is a technique issue. And I have to admit, there's times where I hear coaches talk about technique and I think, yeah, but it looked like you just got physically outmanned. That's what it felt like on Sunday. But watching some of those plays, you can see where it is the second level, just kind of picking the wrong gaps and not filling enough gaps, and maybe asking linebackers to cover more gaps than they're capable of covering in this defense. So that does feel like there's some different choices that Mike Macdonald can make. I think it's pretty encouraging what I shared earlier today about the fact that when the Seahawks have 7 defenders in the box, just neutral, not extra, just 7, that they are one of the top defenses in stopping the run. I think that makes some sense. I think we could see some different fronts, a bare front that maybe like 3 down linemen in the middle there, which will eliminate some of those gaps, spill more of the runs to the outside. We'll see. I think there's some opportunities there, but let's hope it's just not as hopeless as the defense has looked the past 2 games. And at this point, I don't think many people are expecting the Seahawks to win. And I think there's legitimate reasons why that's the case. I don't think this game, even with the last 2 performances, I don't think this game is nearly as uneven as past Seahawks 49ers matchups have been the last few years. The Seahawks are good enough to beat this team. The 49ers are bad enough to lose to this team. And there's some injury situations that could absolutely sway things one way or another. So I will get a chance to talk to Mike Macdonald later today at the press conference, ask him some more questions. Then we will have Real Hawk Talk tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Nathan Ernst, Jeff Simmons will join me. We will get our last looks at this game. Tomorrow morning, Mike Randall of FTN Fantasy will be on with me. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of the NFL and where the odds are moving and what the model says about this game. So make sure you check out that show. And then obviously I will do a post-game show late Thursday night once I get home. So all sorts of stuff coming your way. Really, really appreciate everybody. If you haven't already gone to ftnfantasy.com, use promo code HBAM, please do. It will get you 15% off, less than $8 a month to get access to FTN Fantasy. It's really great. I'm a subscriber. You'll love it. Please make sure you give this show a like and click subscribe. I'd appreciate that as well. Until next time, I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been episode 199 of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.